Hey, I'm Brian Elliott. Welcome to another edition of Behind the Brand. Let's go check out our next story.
Hi, this is Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank. You're watching Behind the Brand.
I usually ask my guests, how'd you get this job?
Your job?
Your job. How'd you get this job?
I got very lucky. Kevin, the mean bald guy on our show, and I used to do the show in Canada, and they had already cast the American show, and Mark Burnett called me and said, we have the show we're doing. It's called Shark Tank. I'd never heard of it. We'd like you to be on it. And I said, great. And he said, we're filming tomorrow. And so that was it. I was the last guy to be cast on it.
What have you learned? Yeah, let's talk about that. You know, everyone who watches this show, they're either an entrepreneur right now or they're working for the man and they are plotting their escape.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. The one thing I've learned is great entrepreneurs never stop learning. And I've learned as much from the show as people that come on it and watch at home. What I've learned in 8 seasons is success has no shape, no color. People complain. They say, oh, I'm not successful because I was born here, or I'm color, race, religion, sex. And what I've learned is nobody cares. Nobody in America really cares about your excuses. People care about what you're going to do with what you have. And we've seen that on our show. We've seen everybody from every walk of life come on our show and get a deal. And we never judge. We never judge them in any way except on their business.
I love that. I have whined about my failures before, and it's true, nobody cares.
Yeah, I've whined a lot too. Nobody cares.
So it really does no good.
Yeah.
It's better just to move forward, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Talk to us about failure, you know, the F word. A lot of people, I think, get stuck by it. They're either paralyzed by the fear of possible failure, you know, imagining something that hasn't happened yet, or the actual event, you know, they try something, it doesn't work. What are you afraid of?
You know, it's interesting. When I first got on the show, I'll never forget, you know, my background is we come from real hardcore poverty, and so that really shaped my view on life. So I always tended to protect my downside. I never wanted to move backwards, and I was really proud of that. And about season 4, I'm having lunch with Mark one day, and we're talking about our businesses. You know, I have a pretty big cybersecurity business. I'm really proud of it. And Mark says, you're a pretty smart guy, but your biggest problem is you don't think big enough. I said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? He goes, you're always talking about the reasons and the protecting your downside. You got to think it's always going to work out. And there's a balance there, because what I fear is moving backwards and having the business go away. But I also think there's a healthy amount of fear and paranoia that's good. Andy Grove from Intel always says, only the paranoid survive. It's good to be paranoid.
Yeah, so, you know, playing along Mark's kind of sports analogy, which I'm sure he was thinking Mark's an offensive player, you're playing defense.
I was playing way too much defense. And so I've tried to change that balance. And it's funny, ever since I changed my mindset, the company's grown by 50%, and we went from selling in one country to multiple countries around the world and doubled our staff. So there's something in that.
Let's talk about staff for a second. It's hard to find good people. Would you agree?
Well, it's hard to find good sharks even, and but we somehow, the producers have. In my business, the unemployment rate is 0. Everybody who works for me can literally walk across the street and get another job. Cybersecurity is so hot. So you have to create an environment where people want to be there, are highly motivated to be there, and you need people with your culture. We love to compete. We love to win, and we love to fight in the arena that is business. And so we tend to have a lot of Olympic athletes, sports people, highly competitive people by nature. If you're not competitive, you're not going to do well in our environment.
Well, so I'm curious, so are you pitting teams against teams internally, or is it us against them?
It's us against the world. Okay. You know, we're one big team. In our world, we're a team. We all participate together, and you're either with us or we hate you.
So maybe, you know, kind of takes one to know one, right? Like, have you had difficult experiences with staff or team players before that were not performing? How easy or difficult is it to, you know, kind of weed those people out or make changes?
I have no problem with that. I used to work for Warren Avis, the guy who started Avis Rent-A-Car, and he said, I'm going to give you a piece of advice in business. It'll stay with you your whole life. I was in my early 20s. And he said, slow to hire, quick to fire. Sometimes people don't work out. You have to have the guts to make those changes.